March 16th, 2006. This is Diehard Gamer Radio, Episode 3.
You are listening to Diehard Gamer Radio, the source for off-mainstream video game news and topics. Now your hosts, Murdock, Brian, and John.
Well, welcome to Episode 3 of Diehard Gamer Radio. We're almost close to having an episode a day for a week, so thank you very much for joining us for this episode. First thing we want to do, as we do in all the shows, which isn't hard because we've only had 3 shows, is we're going to discuss the corrections and apologies for the last show. Now, we had a technical problem with Episode 2. And what happened was I was using Audacity as a way to capture audio, but when we were done with the file, something happened and Audacity crashed, causing us to lose our original second episode. So I want to apologize to everyone out there. That was pretty much the reason why Episode 2 wasn't around. The next thing is that we also had a delay on the third show because John was in merry old England. So any real news from England, John, or nothing to report?
See any nice wee bits of crumpet out there, Governor?
You what now?
Bought some games.
Obviously not video games, as you don't have a PAL monitor, do you?
No, I don't. But thanks to our new friend, the PSP, we can actually play foreign games without worrying about region locks.
Okay. And what did you pick up in England?
Actually, for the PSP, it was just Sudoku, which is even out here. But needed something to play on the train.
Okay.
The other part, though, is did get Fahrenheit, which is known here as Indigo Prophecy.
Now, is this a PC game?
PC.
Okay.
So, again, not worrying about the region locks.
Okay.
And as the final bit...
Don't hold us in suspense, man. Speak up!
Go ahead. Any time.
Did we buy crap, too? I know they sell crap everywhere, but I figured it was different over there.
It's a very sweet crap.
Well, one man's crap.
Very tasty and very robust, full of flavor.
Yeah, I hear it's called shite. Where's that in Ireland?
Okay. So you just forgot your point.
Right. 2 out of 3 ain't bad, folks.
We're totally
right
gone now.
Okay. So sometime in the middle of the night, John's going to be like, and we'll know what it is, and he'll call me. He's like, put this in the podcast. I can't. I'm at work.
His neighbor will call the place and sell. My neighbor's yelling crap out loud. We don't know.
Okay. The last piece of corrections/apologies that I want to go into is the fact that I used the word exactly way too much when I was listening to the first podcast. So
exactly.
Oh, I remember what it was.
Okay.
Too late, man. We're already past that.
A failure is you. Okay, what is it, John?
No, the other interesting thing they had up on the shelves there is a game that's due to come out here pretty soon, Lula 3D.
Okay.
Which, as far as I know, will be the first adults-only adventure game to be released in the U.S. Britain, being not sucky, just has it on the shelf with everything else.
Well, okay.
We will probably have to mail
That's because they
order.
differentiate things. They don't have to worry about their children being raised by video games because their parents don't do the job for them.
Okay. I need to ask, completely off topic, how's the food in England? Because I think they still boil pizza there, right?
And with plenty of fish and chips.
Not so far as while I was there.
Okay.
Actually, the food was universally excellent and had very, very little traditional British food at all.
Okay, that's probably why.
Yeah, that's probably a good thing.
Okay.
Probably.
All right, so next time I hear myself say exactly too much, I'll put like $1 in the kitty or something like that, donate it to
how about I just smack you?
Well, you can do that too.
But in the background, folks, it's exact hurt.
It's me because I can't seem to afford a thesaurus. So, anyway.
Yeah, you stick with what works. Way too much.
Exactly. Okay. Oh, my spleen. Oh. Okay. Since you can't see what's going on in Radio Land, Brian just punched me. So, okay. next game topic we want to go into with some news
topic.
Yeah, is PlayStation 3 is delayed, and the PSP is going to be $200. So not a big surprise. So first thing is PlayStation 3 is going to be delayed, and that's pretty much saying,
it might rain tomorrow too.
Yeah, the sky is blue. PlayStation's looking like it'll probably be around November in the States, so probably...
Well, I thought they were saying November in Japan.
Really?
Yeah. Well, no, I think I read somewhere that there was supposed to be a universal release.
They're still claiming universal release, yeah. So November in Japan. And
yeah.
We'll see it sometime in 2007.
We'll stick with the old patented formula.
Yeah, so in other words,
we'll see it by February.
Yeah.
So almost a year away, folks.
Yeah. And then the PSP is going down to $199. Now, keep in mind that it's not going to be the same package that comes with the memory stick, the soft case,
it's just
and everything.
Basically the battery
it's basically bare bones core system.
So you are still getting a better deal for the $249, but
if you don't want that other stuff, or you just want to buy the cheaper third-party stuff, or you just want a PSP as cheap as you can get it, this is what you want.
Yeah.
There you go.
And hope you don't get a broken one, like I did, and had to replace my PSP 3 times before I got a nice working one.
Wow, sucks to be you.
Yeah, he's like
thank God for the return policy.
He's like cheese that can't go outside.
Yeah.
You mean you go outside? Yeah. Well, I watch the commercials.
Yeah. For those of you who don't watch TV out there. Okay, so we don't really have much to talk about as far as that Sony stuff. I mean, not a big surprise, so we're going to move on. Hideo Kojima said some time ago that video games are not art, and Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times actually said something to that effect, that, video games aren't as viable an art form as, say, movies or actual art. So my question to my 2 cohorts is, are video games art, or basically, can video games be art?
I don't think all video games are art, but they certainly can be. Not that you're going to notice if all you ever play is GTA and Madden. But
there are some very artistic games out there. I mean, especially in the world of shoot-'em-ups. You'll see some of the most beautiful bosses, some of the stuff that you'd almost swear was hand-drawn.
But is art basically just how things look like, just the Well, not necessarily.
Well,
it could be
still
the
RPGs that are actually
graphics.
hand-drawn out there. They're just amazing, too. And that in itself could be
it isn't
art.
the graphics. That really isn't what makes a game art, in my opinion, because really then you're just saying that you take this screenshot and it's a still picture.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. What is the
definition
definition of art, though? Everybody looks at it as a different thing, though.
I think art is something that can inspire an emotional response in someone. You go ahead and you can reveal something as the artist and give somebody a new perspective on something.
See, I believe that certain video games can be elevated to art. I'm not saying all video games can be art, Bad Dudes versus Dragon Ninja being one of them.
But then again, that's like saying not all movies are art either.
That's true.
You can't have,
let's take a game that I think could be considered a work of art, which is Shadow of the Colossus.
It's certainly one of the most common examples lately
of how a video game could be art. Just the way the colors aren't very bright, kind of muted, just the whole style of the game. I mean, I think that's, like you said, that's pretty much the de facto standard when it comes to describing video games as art, is they'll use Shadow of the Colossus as an example. But I think the reason why is because the game really does inspire an emotional response in people. People see it differently, and they take something away from it that's more than just the bare presentation that's there. When you're riding along in that canyon and you get that sense of loneliness and emptiness that's there, when you watch one of the colossi tumble to the ground, and there's that sense of loss.
So the artist is really, if we call it the artist, the artist is really transferring what he was trying to do to you, and you actually understood it, felt it, and also became him for a moment, maybe.
suppose.
Okay,
So we're in agreement that, certain titles can possibly be considered art, or at least on a base level, artistic.
We'll take a look at Rez.
That's true.
Yeah. That is just
Synthesasia, inspired by the works of Kandinsky, which is why it's called the K Project, inspired by his paintings. That's how Rez kind of...
Kandinsky or Kandinsky?
Kandinsky,
Okay.
I believe.
I was going to say.
Yeah, my Russian and, my knowledge of art is very
to a
bad.
museum or one of these days.
And in modern art right now, you can see people experimenting with interactive art. I don't see how you would draw the line between some interactive art installation in a museum and a video game. Somewhere those two are going to mix, and they're going to have overlapping elements.
Okay.
I mean, it's just a new medium, and people are saying it's not art because it's a part of popular culture.
Yeah, it's the same was said about rock and roll, and it happens every generation with something new that the old folks don't understand.
Didn't Andy Warhol use modern iconic imagery as art?
Yeah.
Well,
when you see a row of Campbell soup cans as a painting, and
yeah,
art is whatever is defined by the artist, and hopefully accepted by others. I mean, we can't depend on people that are not of our generation to declare what we in our generation see as art to not be art. I don't think that is a fair breakdown. I wouldn't want my grandfather looking at something and telling me it sucks, and it's something that was part of my culture and my, growing up and what have you, and then he's supposed to be the one that...
Oh, yeah, but, art is always going to be subjective. I mean, what you consider art is...
Who do you listen to tell you whether it's art or not?
Well,
it should be you yourself.
Definitely not Hideo Kojima or Roger Ebert.
I don't care how popular they are, yeah.
Well, and if we're looking at the dictionary definition of art, too, it's any creative work.
It doesn't get much more creative,
If you're just trying to narrow the definition of art to the point where you exclude video games, I don't think you have a very good definition of art anymore.
Yeah. I think with games in general, I think there's some sort of hidden value system that some games are perhaps of a higher art form than, say, other games, which is definitely true of any other, mainstream artistic endeavors like paintings and sculptures. I mean, there's always going to be the line of, okay, well, this is considered great as opposed to something that's very mediocre. And I think video games are going to follow the same way.
I think some people just believe that entertainment and art are exclusive. They don't necessarily go together, but they can certainly exist in the same thing.
Yeah, that was John just putting down a dictionary, looking up the definition of art. Okay, so, yeah, video games can be art. So next piece of news, and this doesn't come as a surprise to all of us, game companies planting people in forums. And like I said...
Why would they do that?
Well, here's the thing, and this was covered in Penny Arcade and a couple other news sites, and basically what's going on is someone will start a topic on a specific game, and then a representative from the game company who goes into forums will put a post saying, oh, by the way, this game is great and wonderful, and it'll cure cancer and all sorts of things, and try and get people to buy it. But people are saying that's a pretty underhanded technique to use. I mean, is this a legitimate advertising method, or is this something that's very scumworthy, I guess, is about the best word I can use?
It does seem very underhanded, but it's also been around for a long time.
They're just using a new forum or a new medium to
I mean, and John, you can correct me, this has been going on since, Usenet?
I don't know if it's been organized for that long, but we've certainly had the term astroturfing around for a long time.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of different other fields than video games that have used these fake grassroots movements, and now I think we're just seeing it being an industry that you can call someone
bleeding into our gaming industry
and make this happen. Yeah, it's a good thing I go to forums that don't have a lot of companies that really support those types of genres, because I'm on like a shooter
they don't
forum.
have the budget.
Yeah, I'm on like a shooter forum. It's like no advertisements there because no one brings out shooters.
Unless it's a company that's struggling and is begging you to please pre-order our game so we can reach numbers and sell it and actually make money.
Yeah, and by that time
was the company's advertising.
Yeah, that was. It doesn't get any more bare bones than that.
and then by that time I've already bought the game.
It's more like a pity buy.
Yeah.
I'm talking about Tri-Zeal, actually.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen
You were
anybody.
pretty excited about that bonus bandana you got there.
And that wasn't even part of the deal when I bought the game. It was just very cool to see that. But, for everybody out there, Tri-Zeal was put together by a guy that split off from a company and wanted to do this game. He had been making this game for years, finally got to finish it, and he ran out of money at the very end of it, couldn't finish it, and he literally went on the forums and begged people to check his demo out, go and pre-order this game at any of the sites that they could find it on, when there was only like 3 at the time, and just to get his numbers up to a high enough pre-order that he could make the game and guarantee that he could get the last amount of money from somebody, that they would make their money back from him, and, all this just to get his game out. It was just such a hellish adventure for this guy to try.
But you know what? More power to him, because...
it worked,
Yeah, he released a game. It's Triangle Service is the name of the company that created Tri-Zeal.
Yeah.
It's a vertical shooter on the Dreamcast, I believe.
Anytime you release a shooter and it comes out in the Dreamcast, that's one thing. That's a good system to start on because it's still popular in Japan. But if you can get it to come out, if it's popular enough to come out on the Dreamcast and people buy enough of them, it generally gets ported to the GameCube or the PS2 or both, and that's when you know you've succeeded.
Yeah, because Rattle G came out on the Dreamcast, and soon after...
It was just announced.
The company announced that they're going to release it on both the PlayStation 2 and the GameCube. The PlayStation 2 being Rattle G Precious, and the GameCube version being called Rattle G Generic.
And they'll both have dynamic things
brought out in the U.S., or are you still talking Japanese only?
It's Japanese only right now, but being shooters, I couldn't tell you. PlayStation, I would say, GameCube's at the end of its life cycle, probably not.
Well, we did
PlayStation
see
2.
Yeah,
true.
It will probably come over here, but it'll be extremely limited. And you'll see like one.
So it'll probably be like a budget title, but then again, Ikaruga came out on the GameCube, but was it Atari Infogrames brought it out? So game companies planting people in forums, it's not a new thing. I mean, we've seen it before. We probably won't see the end of it. I think
generally pick those kind of people out, though.
But,
it's just common knowledge.
Yeah, I just don't really care for going to forums if people are going to hawk their wares. I mean, that's just...
Okay, let me ask you this, then. Would you consider that a form of spamming in a way? Is it like wasting your forum time?
The question about it, and what makes it underhanded, is if you can even tell. Because these are the people who run these companies and who work at them. What they do is they're expected to have a large number of long-lived accounts that they post there once a day. They talk about a lot of other things than just games. They have established identities so that they can come in later and say, I really like this game and I thought it was good for these reasons.
And people will say, oh, this guy's got 2,000 posts. He's been on it forever. He must know what he's talking about. Well,
okay. All right. So anyway, that covers pretty much our game topics. Next, we're going to go into just news bits. And our news bits are basically what they are, just little bits of news. And the first one is big role-playing game title coming up. I'm real excited about it. I don't know if anyone else is. But Itoi's Mother 3 is coming out. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Mother 3, it's known as Earthbound in the United States. Very quirky role-playing game. It has, I would say, a very definite cult following. So I wanted to ask either Brian or John if you guys ever played Earthbound.
I have not. And Earthbound is Mother 2, right? Mother 1
that's
never had a release here.
Yeah, well, actually, it did. Sort of. The original Mother was on the Nintendo Entertainment System. And actually, Nintendo had finished the translation. They actually had the game completed. It was translated, localized, everything. It was ready to be released. But the Super Nintendo came out, and think there were a couple high-profile games, and they decided to go ahead and scrap Earthbound on the NES just simply because it would have gotten overshadowed by all these Super Nintendo games. It would have just got, I guess, lost in the shuffle, for lack of a better phrase. But it's called Earthbound Zero, but you can play it. It's a full game. They just never bothered releasing it, so they translated Mother 2, called it Earthbound, and released it here with some minor edits to the original game. Not anything major. Removal of crosses as usual per Nintendo's policy. A couple name changes. Some issues of nudity.
Suicides from this one?
No suicides on this one. There is, and this is only going to be for people who actually play the game. But when you get all 8 sound stones in the game, character Ness actually gets transported inside his mind and end up in this world called Magisant. In the American version of the game, he walks around in his dream world in pajamas, but in the Japanese one, he walks around naked. That's pretty much the big change, and they, change all the bars to cafes for whatever reason. But
protect the kids, whatever the cost.
Yeah, protect the kids. I don't know. Won't someone please think of the children? But Mother 3, there's a limited edition of the game coming out on the Game Boy Advance that comes with the replica of the Franklin badge and a game cover for your Game Boy Micro. And for those of you who have not played Mother 2 or Earthbound, the Franklin badge reflects lightning attacks. So just so you know. Third news bit is the Nintendo DS Lite soars to $300 and
above.
And above.
Which Asian market you're in right now?
Yeah, the white one came out, was immediately sold out. Then the other 2 colors, the light blue and the navy blue, which is more like a black, came out, and those are pretty much gone now. So if you want to get a Nintendo DS, you're going to be paying a lot of money.
Lite.
Yeah, DS Lite, you're going to be paying a lot of money. So
I have already paid a lot of money.
I don't know why.
If you wanted original DS, you could get one for dirt cheap in Japan, right?
Oh,
well, actually,
forums for cheaper.
Actually, what I understood was that, and I don't know if this is still the case, that Nintendo was still having problems with just keeping the original DS in stock and had to re-import them back from the United States. And I mean, and these were like the red packages with Mario Kart DS in English, and those were selling as well. I mean, it was just so
well. They teach English as a second language in school, so
yeah.
So is there still demand for the original, even with the second one coming out?
You know what? I'm not sure. I would bet there's.
Yeah.
I mean, there was demand before, and I guess I would imagine that there's still demand now. So
that's like the PSP versus the DS. How much money have you got?
Yeah.
This seems to be becoming a standard part of any hardware launch now. I mean, I think the numbers for the 360 were something like 20% of the consoles that were bought to be resold on eBay.
Yeah. But
that's exactly it too. He who has it makes the money.
Or some guy that's just selling the box, the 360 box, and people are paying $800 for the box.
Probably the same guy for every system.
Yeah. He probably has like 12 Xbox 360s, and he sold the boxes and made like $800 a piece for every box. So
it's well spent.
Or ended up in the eBay fraud program too.
I think there, and I can't confirm this, but I believe he actually put a disclaimer like in small print at the bottom of the page stating that it was just for the box only, and of course no one read it. So, I mean, legally his ass is covered.
It, and there were people selling pictures of the 360 and everything, but eBay started taking those all down for fraud.
Yeah.
And I'm certain those auctions were invalidated, and anything that went through, well, his ass may have been covered legally still. It was definitely not really going to happen if anybody caught anything about it.
Okay. Well, the next news bit, and I'm not going to go into too much detail of it, but Sega turns Sakura Taisen into a Broadway play. I'm hoping that the Broadway play will allow audience members to choose which girl that they want to see the character fall in love with, and hopefully there will be some real-time strategy battles in the play. So
it's like those Hardy Boys or Nancy Drew books when you were a kid. You got to choose which page you went to next.
The Choose Your Own Adventure. Sakura and Sumire are going to fight. What are you going to do? And then the audience is going to have to choose. It's like, let them battle it out. Let them do nothing. Run away!
I think that idea is probably cooler than what they will actually do.
Well,
yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, so no giant robots doing the can, unfortunately. So, next topic, and this one is going to get kind of groans from all of us here, but the Soul Calibur movie website launches, and no, I did not make that up. If you go to www.soulcaliburmovie.com,
you'll find out the soul still burns.
Well, there's that. And you'll see a flash animation for the Soul Calibur movie. It doesn't have any actual screenshots of what the movie looks like, but there's another video game movie along with Dead or Alive.
When are they ever going to learn?
I mean, that's the one I'm worried about. The Soul Calibur one I haven't seen enough of to start making me cringe, but...
So, not prior experience, though, it can't be good.
So when will the madness end?
Isn't the DOA movie even being done by an American company?
You know what? I don't know. I don't follow movie news.
Well, you know, it's not being done by Huey Bowl, so it may have a chance.
It was pretty funny with Huey Bowl. It's like, you hate my movies. I'm not going to make them anymore. It's like, well, then where's the problem?
I believe I read a quote in I think it was EGM last month, something about Kojima saying, no, we never said anything about giving our movie to Huey Bowl. We don't know where that came from.
Yeah, Huey Bowl, I guess, made the comment that he was going to do...
he was reading a script for Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah, and Kojima shot that down real quick.
Oh, yeah. I don't think so.
He's like, what the fuck are you talking about, man?
Although, fortunately now, German tax law has been changed, so there is no longer an incentive for German backers to give Uwe Boll money to make movies that will fail.
Yeah. So I think he's got
one
more movie that he has down the pike, and I think that's it. But, you know, with the great success of Blood Rain...
And, well, every other piece of crap he's ever made.
Yeah.
Pretty much everything he touches just goes down the crapper. And it comes out a tax refund for somebody.
Yeah. So...
Unfortunately, it's not the guy who bought the ticket to go see the movie.
Yeah. So, anyway, we know the madness rolling in. They'll keep on making video game-based movies. When they make a good one, let us know. And some small news... And this is going on right now. The Game Developers Conference is March 20th, 2006 to March 24th, 2006. You can find out about the Game Developers Conference at www.gdconf.com. And this convention is basically just for developers of video games, you know, programmers, programming teams, and they'll go over, you know, gameplay aspects and design of games. So it's, you know, really cool for those who are interested in developing games, but not much fun for people who actually play games.
Although I might add that last year we got our first look at Spore, which was pretty exciting.
Yeah. And Will Wright will be talking more about Spore, but we don't talk about computer games too much here, so...
You can actually look that up on Google and actually see video of that. It's pretty fascinating. It's quite a concept.
Yeah, there's Spore news over at GamingSteve.com, which is a website. It's run by a guy by the name of Stephen Glicker, who does a weekly podcast, and he's released some news on Spore. And actually, Will Wright signed into his forums and started answering questions about Spore. So for those of you who are interested in the game, that's probably a good place to start, GamingSteve.com. And he has lots of information on Spore, and Will Wright has actually taken the time to answer questions from people who are interested in the game.
And, you know, don't worry, this being Will Wright's next game, even if you aren't interested, you will hear about it before it releases.
Yeah, which we already have. So that's our news bits. And now we're going to go into our Famitsu scores. So the first score I'm going to go into is Sotsugyo Second Generation for the PlayStation 2. I have no idea what this game is, but I got a 23 out of 40, so it's
it's probably not worth finding out.
Yeah. We have Tengai Makyo 2 Manjimaru by Hudson for the Nintendo DS. 29 out of 40. So we're getting a bunch of average scores here.
For games we don't know anything about?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're being real useful for you today.
Yeah. So Biz Taikan Series, Kaigyo Mishi, 28 out of 40. WRC Championship.
Ooh, hey, I know what that means.
Yeah,
we recognize what that game
for the PSP, and that's 28 out of 40. IQ Mania, which I believe is kind of a sequel of Intelligent Cube.
Yeah.
I did see...
No, that's different.
It's a different game?
Because the Japanese release of the Intelligent Cube sequel was Intelligent License.
Okay. All right, thank you for clearing that up.
We're wrong.
So, hey, no problem in admitting we're wrong.
Well, and when they did the U.S. release, it's PQ, and they did it as Practical Intelligence Quotient.
Okay.
So, yeah. Okay.
So that got a 28 out of 40. Psy Coliseum, that's XI Coliseum.
Oh, I've been waiting for
that. And that's the dice game, otherwise known as Devil Dice in this country, or Bombastic. 28 out of 40, so...
I don't care. They sound still playing the game.
Yeah. No, you need is a PSP.
Hey, I collect the libraries first. I told you.
Bomberman. Bokufu Sentai Bomberman for the PlayStation Portable. 24 out of 40. So.
Yeah, they're making they'll never stop making Bomberman.
Yeah. And...
that'd be like hoping for them to stop making Mega Mans or something.
Yeah, there's... and then Lemmings for the PSP.
Yeah, speaking of Lemmings.
28 out of 40. So Psygnosis properties still being made.
Which is nice. I love Lemmings. It'd be great to play that again.
I was a big Psygnosis fan back in the Amiga days.
Never was a follower.
Bring back Blood Money and Menace, please. I loved playing Awesome and Agony. For those of you who had an Amiga, you know what I'm talking about. For those of you who didn't, well...
Probably not important.
There's a Guru Meditation and a Fat Agnes chip for you. If you got that, you are a nerd. Okay, so those were the scores of the week of March 2nd, 2006, and now I have the scores for March 9th, 2006, and we start off with Wallace and Gromit.
Yasai Batake de Dai Pinchi.
Yeah. And that got a 26 out of 40, which seems pretty typical for
licensed
any Ski Jump Hair Reloaded for the PlayStation 2 got a 17 out of 40 to 3 4s and a 5. So
congratulations, you're lower than any game I've seen in about a year.
Yeah.
I could have told you that just from the title.
Yeah. Garak Tale for the Nintendo DS. 30 out of 40, which is okay.
Is this another one we have no idea what it is?
I believe so.
That's a Koei game, so it's probably strategy, and it's on the DS, which is just another game being pumped out for that system. It's amazing how many games are coming out for that system.
Okay. The next one, and this title is very long, is Chogekicho Ban Karoru Genso Enso Daio Zenin Shogyo.
What was that? Okay, don't choke.
Yeah, I'm sure it's probably written with like 2 million kanji, but I got a 26 out of 40, probably lower points because of the actual title.
Again, we don't know what this one is either.
And the sequel will be that whole title again with Reloaded.
You know, he's gone through the list and said, like, some Japanese game gets...
But this is just small fries to the big one, March 9th, 2006. And we are talking about what everyone is talking about. Final Fantasy 12 gets a 40 out of 40. It gets a perfect score in Famitsu. I feel like
balloons should be dropping in.
Yeah, I mean something that happens, once in a blue moon, if even that. Either it's really good or Square's got some deep pockets, and Enterbrain Entertainment just cashed a check.
Do you like my hat?
Yeah.
It's made out of money.
So, Final Fantasy 12. So that just came right out of the blue. I mean, we weren't expecting that at all. But it's
What, the Japanese would like a Final Fantasy game?
Well,
that surprised the hell out of me.
No, I mean, just a perfect score. And let alone 12 of them. Yeah, and that is the...
It's not even 12 anymore. It
Yeah.
might be the 12th, but now that they're going back and rating the back catalog...
Yeah, and that...
You get oddballs like Cerebus.
Yeah, and that...
X2, you can't forget about the...
yeah, and that... And
I could forget it.
relation.
I forgot about it until you brought it up now.
Yeah, and that is the second Squaresoft game to get a 40 out of 40 in Famitsu. The first one being Vagrant Story. So, I personally kind of liked Vagrant Story, but I don't think it was 40 out of 40, so...
Well, it is also interesting to note that none of the games that got a 40 out of 40 are on the Famitsu Top 100 list for readers' favorites.
Yes, that is actually a very interesting point. Now we're going to go into our game reviews. Like we mentioned in our last show, but it is worth repeating, our rating system is on a scale from 1 to 5, 1 being poor, 5 being excellent, 3 being kind of middle ground. So I'm going to start with the review here, and I'm going to review IBARA for the import PlayStation 2. It is a vertical scrolling shooter by our good friends at Cave. Before I start, I would like to mention that I have great love for Cave and all their games ever since Dodonpachi and Mushihime-sama. And I also want to do a special shout out to Upoku, which features a cat who is on a submarine launching balls a la Bust-A-Move, Puzzle Bobble, and if you fail, he drowns.
It's actually very sad.
But funny all the same.
Yeah. But anyway, not to go too much into the story of IBARA, because as a shooter, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. You are basically trying to defeat these 5 women who are part of the Rose Garden. They come from a foreign country and attack you, and basically you have to bring them down one by one. And this is it's a typical Cave shooter in the fact that it's just incredibly difficult, but the design of the game is very reminiscent of Battle Garega. The system for the game, and there's two modes. But let me go into the system. You have your main shot, and you get power-ups, and you have little options on the side of your plane, and you can change the options to do like laser or napalm or missile or whatever. And depending on the types of configurations that you have, you get bonus points, and there's points for combos and everything like that. So as far as the scoring system, it's very reminiscent of what you'll see in a lot of Cave games. Now, there's 2 modes to IBARA, and the first mode is based off the actual arcade game. So it's just, standard port. There is a range mode, which is actually based off the IBARA Black Label. And that one actually allows you to, once you get a weapon power-up, you can actually scroll past all the weapons that you've collected and, choose the best weapon for the job. It's also a little bit easier, but not much. There are 4 different selectable ships, 1 per each player side, and they all have different speeds and different types of firepower. So finding the right ship is very, very crucial to survival. The one thing I didn't like right from the get-go of the game is that you go into the options menu to actually change your ship, and there isn't anything in the actual game proper that has a graphical representation of the ships. You can't change the ship in the game. You have to change it in the options and then go into the game. So that was one of the things I didn't like. I would have liked to have at least some sort of graphic showing, what the advantages and disadvantages of every ship was. As far as the actual game, it is very, very difficult. The arcade mode is actually more difficult than the arrange mode. However, in the arrange mode, you can't continue. But in the arcade mode, of course, you can continue as many times as you want. I'm going to end up having to give this game, I'm going to have to give it like a 3.5, a 4 out of 5. It's a very solid shooter, but very, very difficult. It does suffer from some of the same problems that Battle Garega had. So you're going to have some hard-to-see bullets coming at you. And just as with Battle Garega, you know, sometimes you'll get hit and wonder what the fuck hit you. IBARA is exactly the same way. So there's going to be like these ghost bullets that come literally out of nowhere, and you're like, where the hell did these come from? I also want to mention that it does have a slight Raiden syndrome. For those of you who don't know what Raiden syndrome is, if you ever play the shooter Raiden, you'll know that your ship is actually kind of slow. IBARA does suffer from the same problem. So your ship has some problem getting out of first gear and getting from one side of the screen to another, but sometimes the slowness works with you as when you're dodging millions of bullets.
So this sounds like one that you couldn't recommend unless it was somebody that already likes shooters.
Yeah, it's someone that's really, if you like shooters, I mean, like me, I love shooters. It's one of those games shoot 'em ups. I would recommend it to someone who's a shooter fan. But if someone who just plays it casually, it's not a game I can really easily recommend because it's just really difficult.
Yeah, it's more collectors.
Yeah, it's for people who like shooters.
Playing.
So, moving on, Brian, you have a review for us?
Oh, yeah. King of Fighters EX2 Howling Blood. This game's been out for, I think, well over a year now, but I finally got a chance to pick up a copy and jumped on it. King of Fighters goes way back. Classic Neo Geo fighting game. Been around for years. In fact, they used to make them yearly up until, I believe, 2003 when it changed, when the MVS died, so to speak. King of Fighters started out in 94. It was a basic twist on fighting games in general. Fighting games used to be a la one-on-one, you versus a multitude of enemies, one at a time, and you had to get to the boss, take the boss out, win the game, yada, yada, yada. King of Fighters put a twist on it, and they gave you the option to use a team. And you could use different members of this team during the course of the game, and subsequent years later, you could actually swap out members of the team, or you could have a striker come in, which would help break a critical moment or kind of sidetrack the enemy while you're trying to attack them. And it's just a great series of games on the Neo Geo as a start, but it got better and better as the years went on, and certain years were better than others. But seeing it brought to the GBA as Neo Blood was just great. I mean, it was nice to have a portable version of King of Fighters, and you had all the great selection of the original characters. But EX2 went a step further and made it just beautiful. It's a great game. Looking, playing, the character selection in EX2 is also great. I found myself just loving the game all over again and getting to play on a smaller format. And you really do still have the 4 buttons you had on the original Neo Geo, and so it doesn't deter in any way from the game. It takes a little bit getting used to the left and right buttons on the shoulder, I'd say, but shy of that, if you've got a broken-in GBA, you'll pull off all the original moves, and you'll do it just as you'll have as much fun doing it on this as you did on the original Neo Geo. And I'm a diehard arcade fanatic. I still play it on my arcade at home, and I love to play it there, but it's nice to have a portable version and enjoy it just the same. I'd give this a 4 out of 5 for sure.
Okay, so, and I've played the game too. I mean, graphically and just the animation in general, I want to add, is actually very well done for a Game Boy Advance game. And the control is really tight. So, I mean, yeah, definitely spot on with the review. So, John, you have a review for us?
I do. I was going to talk about Project SNOWBLIND. Consider this one a bargain game review. This is an FPS that came out for the PS2 and Xbox some time ago, but you can now find in a bargain bin near you for $10 to $20. You probably overlooked this game before because it had a lot of competition from other stronger FPSs at the time. But now that it's down to a cheap price point, went ahead, took a look at this, and I think it might be worth doing so for you as well. The plot line is fairly generic, but seriously what FPS isn't. You're a future super soldier out to fight the madman who wants to destroy the world. You get some help along the way, but mainly it's you shooting guys in the face. And really, this is what you want out of an FPS, right?
That's why I play them.
As I understand it, this was originally related to Deus Ex, but due to some falling out, they sort of ripped it out of that universe. But the same kind of futuristic technology and general style applies. For gameplay, the most interesting part of it is the variety of weapons that are available. We've certainly had FPSs in the past that have done a lot with alternate fire modes, but this really goes above and beyond the call and giving you a variety of different ways to, well, shoot people in the face. For instance, there's a shotgun that you can go ahead and use that behaves as you would expect it to, but the alternate fire throws out this spread of 4 glowing bombs that sticky onto things and blow up sometime later, doing quite a bit of damage. Or there's a lightning gun that can go ahead and chain between different people, or throw up a sticky ball that'll go ahead and do proximity damage to anybody that wanders by. It's really quite creative. There's also a variety of different grenades to give you different options. There's like a standard explosive grenade. There's an EMP grenade that'll knock out electronics. There's a flashbang that'll go ahead and disorient people, throw your screen white if you happen to be staring at it. In addition, there's a variety of different powers that are available that you can also use. Things like slow down time, throw up an energy shield, turn invisible. It gives you a whole huge variety of different options for how to tackle any particular group of enemies. The level design really facilitates this, too, in that they give you a variety of different ways to accomplish any task. And you can try and sneak through, going through back paths. You can just go head-on and shoot everybody. You can be careful about it and take out people from a distance and try and keep them from getting to the alarm panels. You could go invisible, sneak up, steal the enemy vehicle, and shoot everybody with it. Lots and lots of options. And it really is the best part of the game. You can go through and play the same level again and have a completely different experience if you decide to take a different tact through it. The graphics for the game and overall presentation are okay. It's not going to be the top-notch of a AAA title, but it gets the job done. And they added some nice touches in for destructible environments that can add a cinematic flair to some areas. For instance, there's one fight that takes place where there's a stone railing, and the top of the railing falls apart and gets shot as the battle goes on, and gives you some real sense of damage to the scenery as well. It's not done everywhere, but it's nice when it shows up. There's also, they can throw a lot of enemies up on the screen because of the lower graphical demands they have for them. And that's really quite nice. You can have a very hectic battle with a bunch of enemies shooting at you and even more constantly dropping in as those are dying. It keeps the pace of the game up. So even though you're very powerful and have a lot of options for it, it still feels like a challenge. The best part of the game really is that you can play it however you want to. And that same variety should be just as good for multiplayer. There's so many different ways that you can bring that in. Unfortunately, I haven't actually played the multiplayer, so, yeah, why don't you give that a try and tell me how it is? Maybe it'll be good. A downside to the game, there's not really any difficulty level adjustment for it, so it may be too easy for people who've, gone and played Halo 2 for, 26 hours a day. Overall, I'd say this is really a 4 out of 5. It's got a good single-player game to it. You can't beat the price that it's at now, and really, you'll have fun with this one if you like FPSs at all.
Okay, so it's one of those titles that definitely overlooked, but it's worth the price point that they're giving it, so that's cool.
Yeah, consider it a bargain game review there.
Hey, nothing wrong with buying games cheap. Next, we're going to go into classic game reviews, and I am going to start with probably one of my favorite games, and probably one of the few pseudo-sport type games that I even like. Now, before I start, I have to say I'm not a big fan of sports games. Don't care for them at all. Don't see the appeal of them. Madden, Tiger Woods, don't like them. Don't care for them.
I've always been of the opinion that not nearly enough stuff blows up.
Yeah, but, the only real genre of sport game that I will even play is racing, and I don't like the real sporty type racing games. I prefer the arcadey style racing games, and that's pretty much all I'll ever play. So my review is going to be on Ridge Racer Type 4 for the PlayStation. This game I really, really love. First of all, this game is by Namco, and it's a direct sequel of the third Ridge Racer, which is known as Rage Racer, and that's also an excellent game. Ridge Racer Type 4 starts you off with the ability to select from 4 different teams. So you have the Pack Racing Team, the Mappy Racing Team, Silvero Racing Team, and what you do is once you choose your team, then you get to choose your sponsor for what car you want. And depending on your sponsor, you get the type of car mechanics, whether if it's more of a drift car where you can power slide through turns, or more of a grip car where you kind of have to slow down in turns and then speed up. Now, there's over 300 cars that can be unlocked in this game, and it does take a while to unlock all the cars. There's 8 courses, and each course can be played in reverse or mirrored. The game presentation itself is very well done, and the game itself is actually quite challenging, and even on the easier levels it's challenging, but it doesn't take away from the fun. The way the game works is simple. Once you choose your team and your car manufacturer, what happens is that in your first heat, which is comprised of the first 4 races, you have to place within 3rd or better. And then the next 2 races after that, the 5th and 6th race, you have to place 2nd or better. And then for the last 2 races, you have to actually place 1st. Depending on how well you do in the first 4 races determines what type of car you'll get for the next heat of races. So, for example, if you place 1st, you'll get the best car there is, where if you place 1st in one and 2nd in another, you may get a pretty good car, but probably not the best if you got all 1st place. Courses are very challenging, and even still challenging today. And, graphically, even though it's one of the later PlayStation games, really well done, and the soundtrack is just excellent. The one thing I don't like about the game, and this is more of a criticism of the Ridge Racer series in general, is I would prefer more of a standard racing dynamic as opposed to always having to overtake cars. It's one of the aspects of Ridge Racer that I am kind of growing tired of. I would prefer if all the racers started at the same spot and then you fought to keep your first place position, but that's just how the game is. That's how the game has always been. But Ridge Racer Type 4, I will give a 4 out of 5. It's probably one of the best racing games on the PlayStation. It's, like I said, got one of the best soundtracks out there. Really tight graphics for the time it was made. Great design on the courses. And, after playing that game for a while, I got really good at racing games, and it helped me a lot. Heaven and Hell is probably the course to really learn your art form on the road. So, excellent game. So, Brian, you got a review?
Oh, yeah. Guardian Heroes for the Saturn.
Treasure Wolves!
They will not be stopped. This was probably one of the first hack-and-slash games to come out. I think it was one of the opening games, actually, for the system originally. But it was a side-scrolling hack-and-slash game. You scrolled from left to right. This had a unique dynamic to it, in not just the fact that it was a hack-and-slash, but you could play 2 friends at the same time and hack to your heart's content. And you could do combos together. You would start off a combo of just whacking some guy with a 5-hit combo and knocking him up in the air, and your buddy'd come in and finish it off, and you'd master some 14-hit combo or 20-hit combo by the time you were done. And that was just the start. Later you got into the game, the farther you got, rather, the bigger the combos got. This had a unique dynamic to it, though. It had the option for you to jump into the background or jump back into the foreground, so you could attack enemies on 2 different planes. And it was like, being farther back in the forest or being out under, in front of the trees, It was a neat game, and that dynamic was, that foreground was a neat concept that I also enjoyed in fighters like Fatal Fury. That was one of the first places I saw it, but it just added a little more to the game, and the game was well done. It was well drawn. It was probably one of the neater games of its time period, and it still holds the fun it did back then. There was one little quip I had about it, and there was an option on the back. If you looked on most games back in the day, they would tell you if they were 1 or 2 player, and this one said it worked up to, it was either 4 or 6 players total when you're done, but the big thing was I wanted to get 3 players together and play through the game, co-op it with 3, and I went to this extraordinary trouble to find this Sega adapter that you plugged in that gave you the option, and only to find out that when you got all 3 people plugged in, or 4 at the time, and you went in to play the game, you didn't actually battle in the game, you battled each other. It was this horrible waste of my time just to find this multi-tap, Yeah,
well, the multi-tap for the Saturn was kind of hard to come by to begin with. But then, find out that, hey, you can play 4 players as long as it's versus mode.
What a waste of the $5 I paid at the Toys R Us grab bin.
I see why you're so upset about this one.
Yeah, now
it wasn't the money, it was the effort involved.
Now all you have to do is find a copy of Bomberman for the Saturn, and your life is set, because you can play, that's 10 players on the same screen.
Yeah, and 2 more $5 multi-taps you're never going to find.
Yeah, and I think the sprites in that game are probably 4 by 4 or 8 by 8, something really small.
Looking back, this is still a great game, and I enjoy it. But I enjoy shoot 'em ups and hack and slash games of just about every type. I'd probably give it a 3 out of 5 because it's not going to be everybody's bag, and it gets a little redundant after a while. But you get the right couple of people playing it, and you'll enjoy it through to the end.
Well, that's good to hear. I was worried there for a second that everything we ever reviewed would get a 4 out of 5.
I will do a game that gets a 5 out of 5. I have done a 1 out of 5, though. So, I'm starting to think that maybe having a show just dedicated to Treasure would probably be a good idea.
It wouldn't be that hard to do.
Yeah.
Nothing but good games.
Oh, well, yeah. Then I'd get to pull out Stretch Panic.
Yeah, well, you said nothing but good games. I think there's Silhouette Mirage.
That's not everybody's cup of tea. It's hard, though. It's a hard game.
Certainly not everything they touched is golden.
Yeah. There's, what was it? Well, speaking about Guardian Heroes, there was the sequel to Guardian Heroes on the Game Boy Advance, and that just did not work.
That, bombed horribly, unfortunately.
But, maybe we'll consider that. So, any other news or anything we want to say before we wrap up this podcast and I go to bed for work tomorrow? As if my audience wanted to know that.
Yes, this man works.
What do you do for a living?
Well, what do I do for a living? I get paid to cry in the fetal position underneath my desk.
Oh, so you are a professional game reviewer?
Yes. Yes, I am it doesn't work. No, I work for a major phone company, which I'm not going to mention because they didn't pay me to mention their name on the podcast. So give me money and I'll mention the name. Yeah, like they ever would. We love your podcast so much, Mr. Murdock, that we're going to give you $40 billion just to mention our name on the podcast.
Is that like Zenny?
Is that enough to buy a dress?
Yeah, an iron one.
Well, I need a Zenny to Gil conversion. We can talk about all the video game currency, but I think Zenny and Gil is pretty much all I know.
Well, except Gil now has a real-world conversion rate.
Yes, it does. Why we would need that... I can't buy potions in real... Well, no, I take that back. You can buy potions in real life.
Yeah. That's how we have the conversion rate. Because now, since you can go out and buy a Final Fantasy potion for, about $5, I think it is?
Yeah, $5 a bottle. It's by some Tori. And there's actually a commercial online for it. And basically, I don't know if you've seen the commercial. It's hilarious. It's very, very funny. But actual life point regeneration will vary.
But since we know that, and we know that a potion cost 100 gil, we know the conversion ratio. Just in case you ever had to bust that out at a party and have everybody.
Yeah, because I want to
5 to 1. So.
Yeah, because, go to my local 7-Eleven. I think I'm going to have a rough night. Give me a Phoenix Down to go.
I may not make it through the night.
Let's see, I need some soft. I need some Gastel greens.
And don't forget your ribbon.
Can't buy the ribbon. You have to find it. Or steal it from like a Tyrannosaurus.
Well, you'll find it. You'll pay for it.
Hardest item to find in pretty much any Final Fantasy. The guy's named Sid behind the counter, so, so that's enough Final Fantasy geekery for one night. I'm sure there'll be more when Final Fantasy 12 comes out and I actually get a chance to play it.
Are you actually going to buy that one when it comes out?
Of course. I played the demo that was included in Dragon Quest VIII, and
I heard you got to run around through a castle with a bunch of twisty corridors.
Actually, there's two scenarios to it, depending on whether you like the wait time battle or the active time battle, and it's. I'll have a review on it a little later when the game actually comes out. But
I think I'll put that one on the shelf. Well, actually, I don't think I'll even pick that one up till it hits $20.
Yeah,
too many other RPGs to play, man.
There's about a pile of like 30 games that I own that I'm still working on playing. I'm just getting through Xenosaga 2, and now I've got like another batch of games that I have to go through, and there's been Game Boy games that I've been playing. I picked up Osu Tatakai Oindan, which is the Nintendo DS game where you play the all-male cheerleading squad, and you have to help these people with these issues, and it's like a musical rhythm game with your stylus, and it's just very bizarre, but I love the game. And I just
pretty much sounds like a DS game.
I just beat it on easy, and I'm halfway through the normal mode right now. So, but maybe we'll talk about what we actually play.
Well, we just unwrap and stick on the shelf.
Yeah, that seems to be most of our gaming experiences. We're just so busy. It's like, hey, we bought a game, we'll just put it on the shelf, and maybe sometime in the near future, maybe when we're retired, we'll have a chance to play it.
We play 1 out of every 5 games we buy, and we review even less.
Yeah. So, is that it? Are we done?
Das kaputt.
Okay. Well,
for our tagline.
Okay, and we'll probably come up with that.
I gave up tagging in high school.
You have been listening to Diehard Gamer Radio. As always, you can reach us at diehardgamerradio@gmail.com. That's diehardgamerradio, one word, @gmail.com. So please join us again next time, where you will listen to 3 guys who know a lot about video games and not much else.